where have the wise guys been? Out being wise?
Oh, I've been out doing some silly things.
You
You've
had
been
some
doing more
silly
fun
weather.
things.
You had some silly weather. Yeah, you were pretty busy. I keep up with some stuff when I'm off. I've been off for the last like week and a day. We went down to Disney, which fun, but you need a vacation from that. You know what I mean? Like it's fun, but it's exhausting. And you get back and you're like, wait a minute, I have less energy.
Some weekends are like that. Some weekends are just like nonstop, and you have so much work to do at home. And you get there on Monday, and you're like, I'm actually not recharged at all for an entire week
Nope.
of work.
You can feel it coming on a Sunday evening. You're like, dang it, I didn't do it right. I didn't do it right. So we're here. It is a Cinco de Mayo Monday,
Oh
and we are
yeah.
ready to rock and roll. So here's what we got on the docket today. We're going to lead it off with Wes. We're going to show you something, and I would love for people. The first time I saw this that you posted, I thought, what on earth? They're getting winter weather. Wacky, wacky stuff.
It is plausible. I mean, the May wintry weather is really, really possible. So I don't blame you for being a little confused at first.
And I hadn't been following it closely, so I was like, they get snow? But anyway, we'll dive into that. We got a meteor shower. You know, me and my astronomy minutes, always ready to go. On this date, I thought since it is a notable day, you know, Cinco de Mayo, however you choose to celebrate the culture and everything else, it's a known day, right? Like a known holiday. So I thought, let's look back at if there's been historic weather. And there actually was an outbreak, a little different than you might think of as a typical outbreak, but nevertheless very impactful back in 1989. We'll discuss that. We got a special interview. This is a little late, but part of us being off and schedule crazy, I got to interview somebody whose mother survived a EF4 tornado in Pleasant Grove. That's here in my TV market. It's a suburb of Birmingham, and her story is great. If you have a chance, stick around at the end of this. It's about a 20-minute sit down, very casual. We just talked, and she just told me the story, and I love listening. I don't know if you've had the chance to sit with and talk with tornado victims, Wes. I've never been in one, so hearing what they have to say is always very. It gives me something to think about, and it gives perspective.
I have talked with a few tornado victims, and it mostly comes when we do what is one of my least favorite parts of the job, and that is going up to people's homes or properties that have been destroyed by storms and asking to talk with them on TV.
Yeah,
So that's the only time in which I've done it. And most of that actually happened in Georgia when I worked in Georgia.
yeah, it's tough. It happened to me in Sawyerville. That tornado went through and rolled this family's mobile home. Somebody went to the hospital, and they sent me in there to get video, and it was tough. I mean, these people lost everything, so you got to try to sympathize. But it's hard. I've never lost everything, and her mom, lost a lot. It was her childhood home, lost a lot. So good interview. That'll be at the end of this episode. So be sure to stick around. We got lots of good stuff. So all right, Wes, I'm just gonna put this up here and let it play and let you
Whoosh.
kind of talk over this.
Yeah, so this is a bunch of hail. This is a bunch of pea size. I don't know what we would consider to be smaller than pea size hail, like BB size hail, maybe. Um, uh,
Maybe.
this, yeah, baby, is tiny, tiny hail that, in some respects, could be called like sleet. So this was about a 15 or 20-minute hail shower that ended up going across a huge swath of one of our major interstates in Kansas City on the north side of town. And it was kind of funny because like bridges and decks ice first. And that's kind of the joke that I originally saw. And then I looked and said, no, as every single road is covered with hail here. And so what the setup for this was, we had kind of three cold fronts come through in the previous 24 hours, just kind of like pushes of cold air. And so the freezing level was closer to the ground. And so you're able to create hail easier when your freezing level is closer to the ground. And at the same time, the sun had been out that day. And so it was a really good combination to get hail forming, not like just super easily. And so this hailstorm just went down the interstate and it covered the interstate just with snow and hail. And it was really cool. Previously, this storm had produced cold air funnels, and cold air funnels are little harmless funnels that form from the same ingredients that give us this tiny hail. And that is a little bit of convection, a little bit of instability from the warmth, and then cold air being lower or closer to the surface. And then after this, we had rainbows. And so it was just a nice little combination of some picturesque weather. Don't think any wrecks were caused by this, but I just love seeing the cars drive by it and just kind of like whoosh all the hail
Yeah.
down the road.
That's what I was going to ask. Was there number one? Was there any wrecks? Number two, did anybody like measure an accumulation of hail? Because I think I don't know if it was you or somebody else. I thought I saw other pictures where it looked like it had snowed, like the ground was completely covered, like the volume of hail was such that it looked like there was a full on accumulation. Like pretty nuts.
I don't think anybody measured because a lot of this that happened was near the interstate, and there aren't a ton of homes near the interstate. But based on the videos that I saw of people driving, I would say probably a half of an inch of accumulation of hail. It looked like the snow plows forgot to put down pre-treatment, and it was sticking to all the roads. The roads were only like this for 15, 30 minutes, and then the sun came out and it helped melt it away. But this is usually something that we see in Colorado, like the higher elevations, where the cold air is closer to the ground, and so you're able to get more small hail events like that that's happening. So, kind of unusual on many ways here.
Interesting. Yeah, I've not. We don't get setups like that. You mentioned the cool air funnel. I honestly not super familiar with how that works. So that's more of a warm air, cool air advection mixing than like a dynamic, wind shear type setup.
What you can get is you can get like a rain shower, and that rain shower is causing like cool air. It's called evaporative cooling. So the evaporative cooling is then sinking air, and then you also at the same time have some rising air because the sun had been out that day, and so you have some instability, but you also have low level wind shear, and so you'll get that sinking cool air, and then it is spun up by the shear, which looks like a little mini tornado all at the same time. So it happens a few times a year. It seems to happen most also in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest, and you kind of have to know what to look for in the atmospheric profile and the setup to think, oh yeah, we could get cold air funnels. Hail is a little bit easier to pick up on. This is a little bit easier to pick up on, but cold air funnels are tough, and they kind of scare the public that they see them. They think it's a tornado, but you have to be like, no, it's not. It kind of is a tornado, but it's really not.
I mean, it's simple enough. I mean, if I saw that, that'd probably be my first thought. And then, of course, like knowing the environment, you'd be like, okay, well, hold on a minute. But still, I'd be very curious if we switched markets for a month, what it would be like, because you have different weather setups and events than we do. There's different dynamics in play, and hail accumulating, cool air funnels. That's unique there.
It's weird. It keeps you stay on your toes around here. I mean, there's supposed to be boring weather this week. We'll get some thunderstorms on Wednesday and Thursday. It's not going to be severe, but yeah, man, you can't go 2 or 3 weeks without something just like you don't expect to happen.
And that's wacky weather with Wes. Got to make that a new
Hey,
segment.
on
Sounds good
Wednesdays.
to me. Love it. All right. In other wacky extremes, one of my favorite things. I love my numbers. Just getting the idea. Now, this is a very broad range. We were talking before we started this, Wes, that it's been a while since we were on together. So this is April 20th to May 3rd. It's a broad range, but gives options. And we had a couple new cities and a new state. How about Oregon?
Beaverton.
Would you have guessed Oregon?
No,
I wouldn't have. In
no.
fact, I almost didn't check some of these states for their elevation and for the sheer fact that I just, with the maritime air mass, I didn't think they got that cold. Check this out. Beaverton, Oregon was right at zero. Elevation here is only about 115 feet. This is just south of Vancouver. Um, I didn't look at the setup for this, but for it to be right at zero, right there in a kind of a wet or a damp maritime climate was a little shocking to me. Admittedly, I don't know a whole lot about the patterns up there on a regular basis, but in typical fashion, Texas, for like the 11th time, has claimed the hottest 106. Basically, go down to the Brownsville market, um, the San Antonio market, anywhere in South Texas, and you're almost guaranteed triple digits multiple times a week. So if you're looking for warm air, that's where you need to go.
So the Oregon one, the only thing that I can think of is that they are would be dealing with some sort of northeasterly wind. Because if you get a westerly or northwesterly wind, you should have Pacific maritime air. But if it's coming off of the
Yeah,
east, it should be dry.
off the mountains.
Yeah, because if it's cool and moist, you're not gonna. You would think
Right.
it's not gonna
And
be
that was my
that
thought.
cool.
I hadn't really, I was shocked when I saw it. And then the fact that the elevation wasn't, 7,000 feet. So,
Yeah,
but there you have it. Who's hot, who's
interesting.
not. And me and Wes are somewhere in between. So, okay. Have you guys heard of the Omega pattern?
Oh, brother.
Go on.
Every single meteorologist that has social media, is this like is it just me? Is it just me or is literally every single meteorologist posting about the Omega block right now? Like the last
I,
week.
I, I didn't do it because it was too much of a thing. I'm like, y'all, yes, it's a pattern. I don't know why it caught such like fire this time. I mean, it's cool, but it's not sparking any turbulent weather. I saw some inappropriate memes with it. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's a pattern that we get. What you're seeing here is a look at heights. So we use atmospheric heights to find where low pressures are, and you have two upper air lows. So upper air low, weatherman's woe. Have you heard that, Wes?
Only from the old weathermen do I hear that.
So this has got me a couple times. These setups, you'll get cold air in the middle of like an air mass here. So what you got is all around here. Okay, you got warm air surrounding this, and right here in the middle, you got a cool pocket of air, and it's just spinning. Cool air holds less moisture, so you got a whole lot of cloud cover. You've got elevated showers, and if it's in the right spot, it'll absolutely bust your forecast. But what these two features do is you got a low here, you got a low here, and you got a ridge here, and nothing really goes anywhere. And right here in the middle of the country, it's pretty quiet. You don't have any, ejecting of these troughs, and really the weather pattern's not overly turbulent. The only places, Texas, New Mexico, I think extreme southern plains, going to have some dynamic weather, but it's not an unheard of pattern, and it doesn't last too long. In fact, if we take our upper air look here, that first kind of cut off upper low swings into New England by midweek, and then you got this weak low that spins and kind of disappears. And look at this that's pretty quiet, Wes.
I love it. That little once you get to like locally for Kansas City, once you get to Wednesday, Thursday, as that last little low there on the west moves through, that will be our rain chance. It's interesting though because we're both kind of dealing with pieces of that easterly low as part of the Omega block. It gave us gorgeous weather this weekend. I mean, it was like 65 and 70 degrees on Saturday and Sunday with partly cloudy sky. Perfect.
Yeah, we were 47 this morning. We're 70 today. Very low humidity, dew
Mm.
points in the 40s. Feels great. But then we got these little short waves that are going to move through here late in the week. Just rain, a few thunderstorms, nothing severe. But New England, it's a bit busy there. Trough just not wanting to move. So, not the place to be. That's the most active weather. But big ridge for the western U.S., some warmer temperatures for the Four Corners. But I got to say, for this time of year, it ain't too bad.
That's
Ain't too
lovely.
bad at all.
We'll take
I'll
a
take it.
week of non-severe weather because in I'm sure another week or two it'll get a little bit more active.
Will. Let's take a look at this on the. I won't spend a ton of time on this. So here's our thing. We got this little surface feature. There's no upper air support. So for those of you out there who are like, what the heck are you talking about? What we look at is, see that big picture we just showed you? That's the upper levels. We look to see whatever forms at the surface, does it have support aloft? Meaning, does that trough connect with that surface front? If it does, you have more dynamics in play. You got a chain, you got strong winds supporting it, and you're probably going to have more organized turbulent weather. We don't have that with this particular setup. These are little surface, I don't know what you call them, little surface waves that'll be moving through here. We may have enough instability to get a few thunderstorms Tuesday night into Wednesday, but just kind of a soaker for us. But really nothing of note. We stay cloudy. We're actually below average for the next about 5 to 7 days in the 70s rather than the 80s. Of a couple rain chances leading to the weekend, and then this is an interesting setup because you have this very broad low. See this here, Wes? It
Mm-hmm.
just it just kind of spins from like Sunday into early next week. It doesn't really ever go anywhere. There's not a prominent feature, but daily showers, thunderstorms just across the southeast.
Yeah, you kind of have like the Bermuda high shifted off to the east, and then that low, they're both working together to just throw moisture over the southeast essentially.
Yep. So you got that southerly flow. There's your moisture, and you got slinging in more moisture from the Atlantic side. And yeah, so, but
Well,
you know what?
I
This is
guess that's
all,
technically not even the Bermuda high, is it? The Bermuda high would be,
I think it's further out, but
yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment to say, it's
Oh,
part of that,
yeah.
that ridge. Regardless, though, I like it. Come back from vacation, really no severe weather threat. SPC only has 2 days with severe threats. That's today, that's Tuesday, and they are very marginal at best. So, I mean, I got to say, it's a good thing to see. Um, and something again that I won't complain too much about because we we know how May can be. It can be a little testy, a little ornery. Do you know what your tornado count is on the year, Wes?
Uh, for for my DMA, it's like one, maybe two. I think
We've
it's
had
literally just one.
we've had 44 statewide. I want to say 16 to 20 have been in our DMA. We had a January, a February, and a March. Um, and that's kind of where it left off. It's been a little quieter. So, quick look at this, and then I want to go to this day in history.
I was gonna say, we talked about switching markets, seeing what it'd be like to switch markets. I don't know if I could deal with the like frequency of the overnight shifts that you have to do, like mentally. When we get to April, May, June, I'm like, all right, like it's just is that for 3 months? We're just gonna have to deal with doing some overnights, like maybe every other week. You're working 12 to 14 hour shifts, but that is
Yep.
like you get like 3 months off from that, maybe.
Yeah, I will. I will say there, severe weather not good for the public. It is an interesting thing to forecast. It keeps you on your toes. We're about to be in the doldrums, where it's partly cloudy, a low of 70, a high of 90, chance of rain. So it's coming. I call May the gateway to summer because it kind of is down here. So, but tornado
And then
probabilities later this month. bullseye over Oklahoma, up into Kansas, sneaking up your way there. Um, so you start to see the focus off of the southeast, and we've talked about it in previous episodes. Just the setup of the jet stream, and comes with the time of year. So I hope it stays quiet for you. I had my fair share of like I had like 2 60-hour weeks back in the
Oof.
spring. I don't want it. You can have it.
And these are for significant tornadoes too. These are for EF2 or bigger, and so you can
Yeah.
like
So this is
what
yeah.
no go no go go go
Do you want me to get the other graphic? Well, I was
no
going to say
no
I grabbed
no.
this one because it was more pronounced. He doesn't like that, folks.
It's
All
the
right, hold
delay is
on,
killing
Wes.
us right now. The delay is killing us. No, well, I think that that map is fine. What I was saying is like we will our tornadoes here are locally not like greater than EF2. They'll be zeros or ones, and occasionally you'll get an EF2, but a lot more of our tornadoes are linear tornadoes. Not that like
Hmm.
they're embedded within a line. I
Like
should say
embedded,
that.
yeah. And those are tough to warn for. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. That certain forecasting offices, just the setup, you'll have these embedded tornadoes, and they're just hard to warn for. You almost got to put a blanket warning on it because they're hidden within a line. They spin up in minutes, spin down, and they're cyclical. They'll go away and they'll come back. We have those a lot here too in the wintertime. So those are tricky.
Yeah. So speaking to Evan's map, like down there in Oklahoma, southern Kansas, northern Texas, that is where they'll get a lot more supercell thunderstorms. They'll develop on a dry line, which is just the difference between a moist air mass and a cold air mass, and it can cause thunderstorms to develop along it. And then the wind pushes the storms off the dry line, and then they're just in an environment which is really supportive of storms staying discrete or little isolated individualized ones, and those are more likely to produce stronger tornadoes in general.
Do you have a lot of discrete where you are you a little north of that boundary?
No, we don't really get a ton of discrete storms. Um, what our setup usually is you'll get discrete or something forming in central Kansas and central Oklahoma that'll happen in the afternoon. And then as the storms progress into the evening, the low level jet increases, they turn linear, and then we get those QLCS type of thunderstorms that move through.
So Wes has spoken and he received. This is
Thank you.
tornado probabilities. So similar map. Whole point starts to really shift away from us here and over to you. So
Look at that
you ready for
little blob in Illinois. Sorry, one more thing. That
yeah.
little blob in Illinois, you can see where warm fronts set up.
Oh wow. You're right. I didn't even see that at first, but you're those warm front riders, those are tough. Um we get those every now and then, a low along the Gulf, and the warm front as it lifts north, you'll get these just enough spin right on the warm front, and they'll come out of nowhere.
So this actually perfectly illustrates the type of tornadoes that we get. And so you'll get an area of low pressure, kind of where that bend is in South Dakota and Nebraska, northern Kansas. And so you'll get a dry line, which will develop in Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, right there. Yes. And so the storms will develop there. The wind will then push them off of the dry line. And then as they're going across Kansas and going across Oklahoma, with time, they turn into lines of thunderstorms. They lose their ability to at least produce significant strong tornadoes. They'll become weaker tornadoes. And so that's why you see the probabilities drop off as they come into Missouri. It's like the typical evolution of a springtime tornado outbreak.
So, do the supercells over time do they like merge with each other? Is that kind of the evolution you're talking about?
They don't necessarily merge. They kind of change shape where the direction of the wind. I would. how can I say this? Maybe I don't really quite understand it as much, but they do change from discrete to linear, and I think it does have to do with the wind profile that changes from the lower level jet increasing, or it could just be the fact that discrete supercells fire off ahead of the line, and then the cold front rather, catches up with the discrete supercells, and then that cold front causes a line to form, and then it blows through.
Interesting. Yeah, we could dive into all this stuff. I just love talking about this and figuring out, because it's one of the things that we're still, like the evolution of a supercell, the evolution of a line, like how it behaves, what it's going to do, and all that stuff is just, it's fascinating to watch, and we're still learning a lot about it, which is what makes our industry both fascinating and at times frustrating. So, and speaking of severe weather, so this date in history, this is interesting. So we go to 1989, May 5th. This is an interesting outbreak because if I said, what is your definition of an outbreak, Wes? What would you say, like in general?
Like five or more tornadoes.
Okay. See, in my mind, I would have thought 10 or more, depending on the size of the area. But
Hmm.
this was an outbreak that would fit your criteria. Seven tornadoes over 3 states, but it's the strength of them that was notable. So this is a community in South Carolina. This was a church, a brick church. So not mobile home, not a poor structure. This was from an F3. 4 fatalities here.
Hmm.
Um, F4 damage. Black and white kind of made it eerie, but this leveled a town. This was in South Carolina as well. And 7 tornadoes, but the ones that formed were just monsters. Big, violent tornadoes that leveled everything. And it's not uncommon for there to be tornadoes here, but I did find some of these stats interesting. So 3 of the tornadoes that day were F4. The total number of F4 tornadoes or F3 or higher that have happened in that same area you just saw is 13. 3 of them happened on this day, and that's 13 going back to like 1950. So it's not super common for the care. I grew up in Georgia. You worked in Georgia. You don't get these long track F3, F4s over there, and there were a couple that day. 3, 2 EF2 or 2 F2s. This is before they changed to the EF scale, and 2 F1s. So
Yeah,
very
usually
interesting.
they're
Seven
more
fatalities.
linear tornadoes.
Yeah, and these were it was an interesting setup. There's a whole atmospheric breakdown of it, but I thought this was interesting and a reminder that it could really happen anywhere this time of year. So good to know that weather overall is quiet. So that is this day in history. All right, Wes, you know what time it is?
Astronomy minute.
Oh yeah.
I may have
So
woken up my
my
daughter on
latest.
that one.
This actually isn't my latest graphic. I made a more of a 3D one for the noon show, but I forgot to drag it over,
I like how the
which is super
box
annoying.
is attached to the the meteor there. You can see it going across.
Did you see? Well, okay, so you can't get rid of the background. How'd you notice that? I hope the viewers didn't. I used this on air several times. Come on, man. God.
I have a keen eye for it. That's how we
Oh,
use the same graphic system, so I know.
hold on. We got to do this again. No, it's not time for that.
No. Just rub
Oh,
the.
oh. There's this like big black. It looks like it's got a cape.
Just make it go faster. Just go. Whoosh.
Anyway, that was supposed to be Haley's Comet, represented by that. Ada, I said this like 6 times, Wes, but for some reason my brain stopped. Aquarids. Aquarids. Lyriids, aquarids. Ada aquarids.
Okay.
These are all Latin. Anyway, we go through the trail of Halley's Comet this time every year, late April through late May, and usually peak sometime right around here. And we peak tonight, so I go into work at 3 o'clock, so I'll be able to see this. Look off to the east in the northern hemisphere, and you could see 10 to 15 meteors an hour. Should be pretty cool if you have good viewing for it. Best viewing is actually in the southern hemisphere because the point of origin is right above, right overhead in the southern hemisphere. It'll be kind of low on the eastern horizon for us here. So,
This is good
need
content.
something?
Thank you very much. I will be showing this on the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news tonight. Thank you.
Sure. I'd send you my better version of the graphic, but it still has the ghost comet in the background.
I'll see if I can get a meteor object made that doesn't have the whole box attached to it, and I'll send it to you.
I was surprised there wasn't one that didn't have that background, but I just kind of went with it,
Huh.
hoping no one would notice, and you noticed right away. So there's your astronomy minute. Get out and enjoy. And hey,
There you
did I
go.
actually win?
You did, even though you said pick the one that was actually closest to my forecast. I don't know what was up with their record keeping books. I went just to their hourly observations and found it. So Evans making a comeback.
I was starting to get. If it was 9 to 5, you've almost doubled me up. 8 to 6 is much better. I haven't gotten on a winning run here. I've been behind. I had a good rally early on after I got down like 4-0, but just been stumbling, bumbling. Guess I'm only good in
60
Alabama.
degrees. No, I was thoroughly surprised that it got to 60 degrees. But obviously you're not.
I think I skew a bit more aggressive on the highs. I've noticed, but that's because I'm used to certain modeling here, and there's certain bias with the models, and like the national blend of models here. If it says 76, almost guaranteed we're hitting 78. It's like a interpretation, so I think I sometimes carry that to other places, even though it may not be the same. But that's just something I think I've done out of habit from being over here because just the way things work. If we have good sunlight down here at this time of year with the angle of the sun and everything else, we can really outkick the model data as far as highs. So,
Well, I'm proud of you.
Chicago O'Hare.
Getting back in.
Okay, before we go and switch to our interview, quick story of O'Hare. I got booted from a flight, 2 flights, trying to get back here to work last August. They closed me and this other group off at the gate and said that they were trying to see if there were seats on the plane. Had a ticket. Somebody important was getting on there. They moved me to another flight like 6 hours later. Fine. It was a 5 a.m. flight. I just waited till like 11. I'm about to walk down the tunnel and they go to close the doors again. They said, sorry, there's not any seats left. I ended up leaving at 10:30 that night. I was at the airport for like
Oof.
18 hours.
Did you get some food vouchers or something for this inconvenience? My gosh.
I actually think they did give me a flight voucher for a drink on the plane. It was United. So
Man. Man,
anyway,
that is bad. I probably wouldn't fly with that carrier ever again if they did that to me.
yeah, I'm a Delta guy, but United had the best time, direct flight, so that's what I get. But this has been fun, Wes. Good to see you again. You want to do this
Likewise,
again next week?
brother. Yeah. We'll get back in the swing of things and doing it. I'm looking forward to listening to this interview.
Yep. So we'll segue to that. Appreciate you guys tuning in on this episode, Weather Wise Guys. Here's a Weather Wise Guys extra. I sit down with Meredith Carpenter as she tells a very, I think, riveting and powerful story about her childhood and her mother's home. So enjoy. Well, it is April, a month that Alabama seems to have a lot of tornadoes and some historic ones as well. We, of course, just passed the anniversary of the Oak Grove tornado in 1998. That went through Jefferson County. And then I'm joined now by Meredith Carpenter, someone who went through the April 27th tornado that also took a similar path to the 98 one. Went right through Pleasant Grove. So you're from Pleasant Grove,
I
correct?
am. That's where I was born and raised.
So how long were you there, I guess, leading up to this event in 2011?
So I was born and lived in Pleasant Grove until I moved away to college. I went to Tuscaloosa in 2000. I did not move back there, but it was my house and my home, and my mom was there. And my experience was just from dealing with her and then the aftermath of what I saw when I went to go a couple of days after the storm. But my family owned that house since it was built in the early 70s until it was torn down after what was left after the storm in 2011.
And I think a lot of people had that same sort of experience, those who were impacted by this. So that day, most Alabamians know, was a historic day. So there were 62 tornadoes in the state, all right? And there's a big, long red stripe in there that goes right through Pleasant Grove, just north of Hueytown. And for folks who lived in Pleasant Grove, I don't know if you can see this at home, but there is actually still a scar path. So I drew where the damage is, but if you look right here, do you see where it's lighter?
I do.
Right in here, that is the scar path from this tornado. And look right in Pleasant Grove, you can see it. The trees are still gone. There's still lighter surface there where everything was just leveled. So that is what an EF4 tornado can do, as you saw firsthand. So I guess talk about that day. You mentioned your family being there, and what did you think, I guess, that morning? Were you following the weather? How did that start for you?
We've always followed weather, but that day, as you know, the warnings were especially concerning. It started in Pleasant Grove. With that morning, my mom, I guess there was maybe a storm that morning that hit like Trussville or Clay north of Birmingham. There was a smaller storm, and my mom lost power that morning. So she was in Pleasant Grove all day without power. So she was really depending on me. I lived in Clear at the time. My dad lived in Pell City at the time, and we were watching the weather and keeping her up to date of what was going on. And then when everything started in Tuscaloosa, I I lived in Clear, as I said. So my family, we started preparing in case it came towards Calera, getting our bathroom ready with everything we needed in case we needed to get in there. And I and my dad both called my mom and were like, "Hey, look, this storm's in Tuscaloosa. I know you're sitting in the living room right now, but you probably need to go on and go downstairs in the basement and be prepared to shelter because it's coming that way. We'll keep you up to date of what was going on." And then once it said it was coming directly into Pleasant Grove, at that point in time we couldn't get in touch with her anymore. And it was quite a while before we were ever able to get through. And my dad eventually that evening, by some miracle, got her cell phone to go through, and it was probably about 45 minutes after the storm hit, and we were able to get in touch with her. We knew her house had been hit. We knew that she was trapped, and we were actually able to get on the phone a neighbor. And doing what you do, you know how rare that is to get any kind of cell service to work
Yeah,
after a storm. And so
yeah.
the fact that we were able to get through to her was definitely a miracle.
That was a big problem too because people forget 2011, depending on how old you are, may or may not seem like a long time ago, but social media wasn't a big thing. So you didn't have initial pictures. You didn't know right away. I know I was in Starkville at the time, not far from Tuscaloosa, and we went over there the next day. Had no idea that the magnitude of it. So you got loved ones. There's no cell service. Cell towers were knocked out everywhere. There's no power. That was a very scary time. But you guys prepared. You probably didn't prepare for this. Here's a stat for you. This tornado track, and some people may or may not know this. This is the same storm that went through Tuscaloosa, the same tornado track. And you can see in the corner of the screen right there where it went through Tuscaloosa. it did EF4 damage in Pleasant Grove. And back just to the west of Pleasant Grove, it was a little weaker storm. It ramped up right over basically the west side of Pleasant Grove before it went through. Estimated winds up to 190 miles an hour with that, which, to give you an idea of 190 mile an hour winds, one of the strongest landfalling hurricanes in the U.S. haven't hit 190 mile an hour winds at landfall. So that is a strong tornado, and certainly did a lot of damage. So when did you finally get in touch with her?
I wasn't able to speak with her until much later in the evening. Um, my dad, like I said, was able to get in touch with a neighbor. They had actually gone down to her house, didn't couldn't tell if she was there or not there, so they thought that maybe she had come to my house earlier in the day and was at my house because they couldn't tell whether she was there or not there. And so they had already started trying to get out of the street. They went back for her. My dad was able to explain to them she was in a downstairs bathroom. They went through the garage and they were able to get her out that way. That was several hours after the storm. My dad went with to Pell City from my like I said he lived in Pell City. So my dad, I had a 3-year-old at the time, so I couldn't get out and do this stuff. So my dad went and helped her, and they would not let him into Pleasant Grove past where the Piggly Wiggly was, which is not far into Pleasant Grove. He was able to park his vehicle, get on he had like a side by side, get on his 4-wheeler, drive to where her house was. And they had taken probably 3 or 4 hours just to get, which normally is maybe a 5 to 7 minute drive from where she lived and to where this Piggly Wiggly was. Took them hours. My mom had
Wow.
scleroderma, which is an autoimmune type disease, and so she had to get out, go over all this debris up her street on foot because they couldn't get the truck down there to the end of the road to get in the back of this truck to ride with a bunch of other neighbors to Pleasant Grove, to the Piggly Wiggly at the other side of Pleasant Grove, where they sort of had that as the meeting place where people could come and catch up with their loved ones. And then we had
So
a
that,
relative that lived right behind there, so she stayed there.
so they actually had like that. That was what you resorted to, is just coming together in a random place to try to find who did okay.
Yeah. My dad was able to get on his 4-wheeler because my mom was on like certain medication and stuff that she wasn't able to get out, obviously, when they were trying to get out right after the storm. So my dad was able to get there probably 10 o'clock that night, drove down and was able to get some of her meds and some of the stuff that she needed and get it out of the house and take it to her so she would have it.
Is this you and her?
That's me and my mom. Yeah.
Very sweet. So that fireplace
Yeah.
that's back there, is that the same one that is right here?
It is.
Wow.
That's that fireplace.
So just to give an idea, obviously there's behind there is a full fireplace, chimney. Is that the living room?
It is the living room. It's the right side of the house. So that where you see on the right side of your screen, that's where the front wall of the house was.
Wow. Completely gone.
Hmm.
And I mean, amazing the things that kind of go untouched. It looks like, well, I don't know if they were there before, but there's some birdhouses on that
They were there
mantle,
before.
and those don't move. Yet you have the entire roof
Right.
taken off.
It's crazy to me. And that one window is destroyed, and the other window wasn't broken.
So why the spray paint here on the deck? What did that signify?
There were a lot of um, teams coming around there. So the storm happened on Thursday. We were not able to get in on Friday. That was the day that the law enforcement was still going around with cadaver dogs looking for houses where individuals had passed in the storm. And so they would not let anybody in on Friday. We were not able to get there until Saturday morning. And what they were telling us to do at the time, because many mailboxes were gone, you couldn't see what what the address was of the house. So they encouraged everyone to spray paint the address on the house for anytime law enforcement came around. They were trying to make sure everyone was safe. You had a lot of insurance adjusters coming in and out at the time, and they had no way of knowing what the address was or what the home was they were looking for. So they had you spray your address. Plus, that was also a sign of somebody's been here and we're okay. This address has already been checked.
So that kind of like gave me, when I first was looking through these when you sent them to me, that kind of gave me like chills in a sense that that kind of signified like what was left. Like you didn't, there wasn't even a mailbox. You didn't know the address. I tried to look up the road that this house was on, and I think it was called Fan Road, and I couldn't find it. But
So it was the Fan Road area. That was what they called the area that it was in, but this was specifically 11th Street. So if you going into the Fan Road area, you would turn onto 12th Court, and then it turns into 11th Street, which is a dead end. There were a number of the tornado deaths that day in Pleasant Grove, one street before this street and one street after this street. But there were thankfully none on this actual street.
yeah, and I look at these pictures here, and we'll go through a couple more. If
Sure.
you'd have showed me these and said that, now, did she write? She wrote it out in the house.
She was in the basement.
So I can tell you right there, that probably saved your life because clearly what's in the upper levels is gone. And we
Right.
stress this, and it sounds just like over and over and over when we say get to your safe place, but that made the difference in this,
It did.
in my opinion, because any of this could have fallen into the house, hit somebody who's in there. I mean, this is a true representation of what
You
these.
can see where the power lines were, like
Wow.
the part of the power lines came into where that used to be my bedroom growing up. Like it's inside the house.
I didn't realize those were power lines, but now that you say it, incredible.
Yeah.
So, and these are some more pictures from. So, what is this? Is this the road where the mailboxes were, the street that she lived off of?
That's 11th Street. So that was when I was walking down that morning, the Saturday after the storm. That was my first view. That's my dad and some friends of ours. Those people that you see on the street. We had to park at the top of the road. It's a short road, and then there's like a cul-de-sac and a turn, and then it comes down to this, and then it's a dead end. So that the left of the screen, you can see a little bit of our house. Kind of if you look up to the left of where the
Yeah.
people are, that's our house. But that was the first view of the street that I had coming down that Saturday morning.
Yeah, right here.
Yes.
You can see the corner of it. And just this gives kind of the scope of the widespread. I mean, this wasn't concentrated to, one side of the street or one area. I mean, this is, the whole road. And again, just to look at that house and see that somebody was able to survive is really, really good to see. So how did that, and I don't know if you can speak for her, but how did that change, I guess, her perspective on things moving forward with respect to these storms?
Yeah, if you see the garage doors on the left, if you go in through the garage, we had built a room down in the basement. It was kind of like the hangout room, and there was a bathroom, and that's where she was. All she ever talked about what she could see. I mean, she heard the sounds, the freight trains, then followed by the quiet, but she saw like the roof shift because the foundation shifted on the home, obviously, when the wind hit it. But she saw the roof shift, and she saw water coming in. And she did not know when she came out of that bathroom what she was coming out to. But as you can tell, we were very fortunate that the structure, even though it was a loss, the structure was somewhat in place there with the basement. It's not like some of the houses around us and that were just complete rubble. So I think that we were very fortunate in that sense. But as far as after that, she never really talked about it. She told me a little bit about what I just said to you, but she actually passed in April of 2018, and from the storm until then, in those 7 years, she never really talked a whole lot about it. But our whole family, from that point, anytime you hear the threat of storms, we're taking it very seriously, and she did too.
Yeah, it can be tough to put that into words, an experience like that a lot of people don't have, especially to this magnitude. So But that just like everything you just explained there kind of echoes the importance of um, making sure you take one. And you know what? 90% of the time, you'll probably be okay. Maybe even higher than that. But that's why we stress: is it worth it? Because this is the alternative. You know, you stay up there and something bad can happen. And with this tornado alone, there were 65 fatalities spanning 2 counties. So we know it was deadly. Um, was a house ever rebuilt? How did that rebuild process go?
So we never rebuilt it. We cleared the lot down to the foundation, just because it was just there's. I mean, the house was a complete loss. I kept the property until a few years ago, and then I sold the lot to someone that was going to rebuild on it. The lot I haven't been there in a couple of years. I hate to say, um, it's just it's still too raw, honestly, all these years later to go there. And so I don't know if they've ever started building or not.
I would have a hard time, I think, doing that as well because you had one image of it that was your mom's. It was your childhood. It was that room that you said, and then just looking here, Meredith, like the fact that I can see on this map all these years later, the Earth is still scarred from this. It probably would not look at all like you remembered it back in those days, which is
Yeah.
hard, shocking, and hard to wrap your mind around for
Yeah, I
sure.
took my mom there on the 1 year anniversary of the tornado. Um, and then I would visit there every year just about. And then my dad and I went there on the 10 year anniversary. And we dug up the flower bulbs that I have planted in my yard now. And my dad planted some in his yard, and my mom's best friend planted some in her yard. So I don't know that I've been back there in probably 2 or 3 years now.
I think I might actually have those pictures you sent me, but the fact that you were able to save a couple things, I think, is really, really, it's cool and it's kind of ominous at the same time because those were things that can remind you of it. But like, how do you feel about? I've seen your front yard. I know the bird bath, the stones.
Yeah.
What does that like mean to you?
To me, it's a memory of my childhood. I always that song by Miranda Lambert, "The House That Built Me." That sort of makes me think of this house. It's the house that built me. So those are some of the flowers that I replanted, and they haven't started blooming yet. The ones down the side of my house actually have a lot of bulbs on them now. The daffodils bloomed. Those are just things that were very. There's the angel and some of the stones. Yep. So those are some of the stones from that fireplace that my mom had wanted, and she had them at her house that she moved into, and then when I passed, they came to my house. So it's a memory of just the childhood and the memories that we had in that house, things that were very important to my mom. Losing my mom in 2018, I see these things, and it's good memories of her. She loved those flowers every year, their irises every year when they bloomed. It was something that was so special to her. So the fact that I can still have those, even though we lost so much, is something special.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing your like take of it, and I'm just getting this secondhand. We talked a little bit before about this day, but I can tell it was very impactful to you and to your family. So, what would you say, to people, I guess, going forward? If you had any advice, because as a meteorologist, I can tell you what happens, but I've never had to live through one. I've been close, but that was storm chasing. So I was being the dummy chasing it. But for people,
You did it on purpose.
I did do it on purpose. I tried to be in a safe spot. One particular time, I got a little too close, but I've never been through something like this. I haven't had a family member go through this, thank goodness. But like, what would you tell them and pass along if you could say, one thing?
Take it serious. As you said, 90 or maybe more percent of the time you'll be fine, because I mean it's easy all these times as a mom, as I'm like, oh my god, they canceled school. So it's easy to get annoyed that they canceled school and you have to be at home, and you have to um, take the day sometimes off of work and out of life when you have busy things going on. For then, thankfully, just like these last storms that came through where we live, thankfully our area, it was very calm, but just down the street in Calera, where I used to live, and some other places, they had tornadoes. Um, so you just never know. It could end up being the day that you're just annoyed because you've had to take off work and your kids are out of school and you have to shelter in place. But it could also be the day that this storm happens. And like I had said earlier, when we talked to my mom, she was sitting in that living room where that fireplace is, where that brick wall went down, or the stone wall. She was sitting in that couch right there where all of that happened until probably the storm was in Tuscaloosa. And we told her, all right, you need to go on and go downstairs. The path it's on says it's coming that way. We'll keep you going. And she's like, well, she was obsessed with drinking sweet tea. So she's like, well, hold on, let me fix some sweet tea. And
Of
she had a
course.
dog. Let me get the dog and get my sweet tea and I'll go on downstairs and y'all just let me know what's going on. Um, and that saved her life. So, it could have not come through there, but on this one time it did. And she was cautious and went downstairs and she made it out.
I really appreciate you sharing your story. I've not really talked to anyone kind of directly involved with this. I know a lot of people. I know what happened that day as a weather guy. But just to hear it gives perspective. That helps us too when we're covering this stuff. Obviously we don't wish for a severe weather day, but we just try to echo this from, what I hear from people like you, from even secondhand or people who survive through it. It's always very good information to pass along, and hopefully that other people will take note. And also, hopefully, we don't have another day like this. This is a case study now. This day,
Right.
never been parameters like this before or since. So
I lived in Pleasant Grove during the 1998 tornado too.
yeah. So we were just looking at we passed the anniversary of that. That was April 8th, I believe, of '98. How far was it? It was a little bit further north, wasn't it? Or
It happened. So I was thinking about this. I can't remember if I believe I was at church if not, if I was either at church or I was at school at dance team practice. I can't remember because that was in 1998. I was a senior in high school. So I just remember sheltering in place because the storm was coming and they made us shelter in place where I was, were it at the school or at the church. But either way, where the path went through was about 10-ish minutes from where we were.
wow. Do you remember much of that? I assume was your house okay in that particular instance?
It was because it went more down through Sylvian Springs and Oak Grove and down that path a little further down. I had friends that lived in Sylvian Springs. Um, their side of the street was untouched. Across the street from them, demolished, looked like a war zone. Um, so I remember that. I don't remember it as well as obviously the 2011 tornado because I was much younger and it didn't hit me personally as close. But I remember I had friends that lost things. There were people I went to school with, went to church with, that had damage. But I just remember going to Sylvian Springs to my friend's house, and her house was fine, and then like across the street was nothing.
Yeah, and that's
And
hard to
so
wrap
that
your mouth.
is
That's hard
hard.
enough to think about as like just a general, somebody who lives there. But then from a weather perspective, even it's how fickle that is. How wide is it? Does it go to this side of the street? Does it miss you by this much? I mean, it truly is a fascinating, and we're still learning about these things. We're
Right,
trying to get better at tracking them, but that's why we just say be smart, be
right.
safe.
Well, we appreciate it for sure.
So Wes, as I was sitting in here talking with her, via like webcam, I'm listening to her story, and it gave me goosebumps in the sense that like you look at that house, and the walls are gone, the roof is gone, the other houses along the street are gone. She was in her basement. She took action. She survived. There were fatalities in that town. There were fatalities all across the state that day. It is just another reminder that just making that effort, just getting in the right place, people calling her to tell her, hey, you've got to get to your safe place. And the fact that now in her front yard, she has pieces of that house from her mom's house still in her front yard. She transplanted flowers as a memory. It lives on. And to me, I think that's really cool. It's a powerful story. And I love to listen to people who have a experience like that. It sheds light for sure.
And it's amazing, how going through one large weather event can really, make a not quite shape your life, but it has such a large impact on your life overall. Like going through tornadoes, the chance of you being hit by a tornado is very, very small. But if you're hit by it or you see it, you will never forget it.
Never. And she, to this day, she takes the weather very seriously. She lives down the street from me, and one of those people that I'd rather spend 30 minutes in the basement and have it gently rain than take a chance, and that small chance have that house or have something that looks just like that house. It's just not worth it. So stay prepared and do the right thing. Powerful story.
I love it. Thanks for bringing us that interview, Evan.
Yeah.
Next week we'll forecast for Chicago.
We'll find some other cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah. We will. We always do it because we're wise.
Get your thinking cap on, wise guy. I got vacation brain, so I need you to pull forward here.
I'm going on vacation. I'm actually going to Portland in about a week or so. So we'll be able to do the episode that will be next week. Anytime before next week, we'll get a new episode out there. But after that, I'll be in Portland for a bachelor party.
All right. Behave yourself. I don't want to see you on the bad dogs list at state.
Catch my mugshot.
Well, can't be having weatherman on the news. So, all right, you guys, have a great rest of your week. Stay safe. See you next time.